Hello and welcome to the best books of 2024 so far. So these are the best books of the year based on the first 6 months, and I'm quite impressed and quite happy, to be honest. I'm going to tell you 8/9 of the best books I've read, depending on how you categorise them, and then I've also got 6 honourable mentions that I'm going to mention as well, which were close to making it into that top, but like I just don't think there's any way they'll make it to the top of the year. Like there's some reason that even now I don't feel confident putting them in the top pile. So yeah, let's talk about them. This is, well, it's not in no particular order, that's what I was going to say, but basically the order isn't how good the books are. The order isn't in like best to worst, worst to best. The order is in the order I read them, so starting in January, ending in June, and yeah, that's basically it. That's the order, that's how we're doing them. I'm going to go through all the honourable mentions first, very quickly, very rapid fire, and then we'll go through the actual top ones. So first up in the honourable mentions is Finale. This is the final book in the Caraval trilogy, and it was a really great end to the series. It wrapped everything up really nicely. We got to see both perspectives, we got to see a lot of things going on, and it definitely left the world open enough that I could see more happening in the world, which obviously there isn't a spin-off series from this series. That's a really good thing, you know, like it feels like there was room for more, and I did genuinely enjoy my time reading this. I thought it was really good, and it definitely feels like a great book that I read this year, just not quite top spot material. Then we have Archangel's Enigma. This is, I think, the 7th or 8th book in the Guild Hunter series. This was great. I really enjoyed these characters. I had a great time. I had a very interesting time thinking about point of views and perspectives. There were things in the previous books that felt massive, that in this book, from these characters' perspective, we're just chill, like we're just background things, and it was really interesting. It said a lot, it did a lot. Really enjoyed the characters, really enjoyed what was going on with it, but I just don't feel as strongly about this as I do a lot of others, and especially for like a fantasy romance series. I think this actually counts as paranormal romance because it's angels, but like it's the same sort of vibe. There's others that I've read this year that I just hold higher, so I don't see this making it into the top spots. Then we have Feybound. Honestly, this would have made it to the top spot, but I have since reading this book read another book by the author, and that has made it into the 6-month top spot. So yeah, little hint of what's to come. But yeah, if it wasn't for that, this would be included in there, but I do keep it as 1 book per author. Then we have System Collapse. This was an amazing addition to the Murder Book Diaries. I really enjoyed it. I really had a great time. This felt amazing. If I was doing a top sci-fi, this would be in it for sure, but top books overall, there was just quite a bit in this that didn't 100% make sense. This was bigger than the other novellas in the series, but smaller than the novel in the series, and it was just a length that felt a little bit different, like not in a bad way, but a little bit different, and the plot just really shocked me. Like I didn't know what the plot was for a long time. Personally, I love these characters. I don't care what the plot is, I'll read this for the characters. But because the plot didn't suck me in, I wasn't sure of the plot, and it really didn't pick up until kind of the 60-70% mark. I just can't put this in a top spot because I wouldn't universally recommend it. Then another special mention is Throne of Honour and Blood. I will read this before the end of the year, and there is a small chance it could make it into a top spot. Like right now it's just an honourable mention. That's mainly because I think it was just released too early. Like the release of this was a mess. When it eventually did get released, I read it straight away, and there were so many errors it didn't feel like a release. There were grammatical, spelling, like things that were just like grammatical or like the wrong word, like, you know, like using like red instead of blue or something like that, that affected the plot. Like it obviously, I pointed out, I was like, you know, this is an error, but it didn't feel like a finished edition. It did not feel like a finalised, fully published book. It felt like I'd received like an art copy or something, and if I had received an arc of this, like I probably would have been much more forgiving and it probably would be in the top, but there were way too many errors and way too many problems for this to be a finished edition of a book. Because it was only released on Kindle straight away, I'm hoping that the errors will have been corrected before I personally buy a paperback, which I'm going to give it another few months I think, because I'm not ready to reread it yet. But if those errors aren't changed, honestly my rating could even go down because it was not great. But I love the characters and I love the plot. I found it really interesting. It was like a 600-700 page book and I read it so quickly. I think it took me like 2 days, 3 days tops to get through this. Every chance I had I was picking it up. I was sucked in. Like, it was so good. There were just a lot of negative feelings around it. And finally, it's a book that's actually not out yet, but I did read it in the first part of the year. So right now this is an honourable mention. I think it will stay there. Like, it was a great, like, cozy, like, coming of age, but not coming of age. It was later on in life. It was like 30s, but it was like that vibe. But I don't think it quite holds up against some of these books, and that is Rewitched. This is a debut. It was amazing. I would highly recommend it. And I think if you really love that cozy genre, if you really love those cozy vibes, but you also like want a little bit more of it, want like real world problems, real life shit basically, like, I would really recommend this. It was really good. I don't know, it doesn't quite feel on the same level as these. And that's just personal preference, obviously, because I think if I was really in like my cozy era, like, I don't want to just call it cozy because it wasn't just cozy. Like, it wasn't like Legends and Lattes cozy. Like, there was a bit more than that. But I feel like it could make it onto like a top books of cozy fantasy. But top books of the year, don't know. So yeah, those were all the honourable mentions. Let's just get into the top books, because we have a lot to talk about. I have my reading journal with me here and I have tabbed all of my reviews so I can hopefully give you my thoughts at the time rather than, you know, guessing what I thought. So first up, our first book that made it to the top spots is Gleam. This is the 3rd edition to the Plated Prisoner series. And it was great. It picked up straight away. It got right into the drama. We got right into the nitty gritty of it. Picked up straight after book 2. There was quite a bit of character development in this. Like, it wasn't everything that I wanted in terms of character development, but it definitely started it. It started that character development. It started what we needed. And everything else that I've wrote down in my personal review is a spoiler. But essentially, there was plot, there was politics, there was like a bit of romance, there was a bit of friendship, there was building up of this community, of these people, and there were some really interesting plots that like maybe weren't the main plot for our main character that we were following, but very interesting things to see as well. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Really great addition to the series, and definitely made me excited to pick up the next one. Then I will tell you right now, this is my top book of the year. I know I'm not doing it in any order, but right now this is my top book of the year. And I think it will take a lot for anything to knock it out of top spot. And that is Storm of Secrets and Sorrow. This is book 2 in the Legacy series. I will say book 3 of the Legacy series is also coming out this year. And right now that's the only book I think could knock this out of top spot. But I'd be surprised if anything does, to be honest. This was perfection. This was amazing. So much happened, so much more than I expected to happen. Like, obviously we left up book 1, and from the ending of book 1 there were things that I was like, oh, like, we're gonna go this way, we're gonna go this way, we're gonna do these things. No, this was that, but this was so much more than that as well. It did so much. Oh, I think our main characters are so interesting to follow. We've got so many perspectives in this as well. Like, we got perspectives of other characters who I would say right now do still feel like secondary characters, but have so much potential to also feel like main characters. We got so many plots, so many things going on, so much expansion of the politics and the magic system. I was just blown away. There were things in this that I did not see coming at all, and this also picked up straight after book 1, which was just perfect because it's exactly what I wanted. Book 1 ended with such a bang that like more was needed. We needed to know exactly what was happening, and yeah, I don't think I can talk about anything else I wrote down, but I will double check what I've wrote down to be sure. This almost got 2 pages of my bullet journal. Like, I managed to fit another review in, but like I was writing small. Like, I need to find better ways to talk about this without giving away spoilers, but I just really struggle to. Like, it's an amazing series, so I keep it nice and bland and nice in general, because just yes. Okay, and here's where it's either a top 8 or a top 9 depending on how you want to look at it. I can't decide between these two. This is book 1 and book 2 of the same series, and that is Garlic and the Vampire and Garlic and the Witch. So Garlic and the Vampire is book 1, Garlic and the Witch is book 2. And these were great. They are little graphic novels following Garlic, and Garlic is like part of this vegetable patch. Agnes the Witch is like controls the vegetable patch. In the first one we think there might be a vampire, we're going after it. In the second one we are helping out the witch. So much goes on. This is so cute, so cozy, so lovely, so wholesome. Like, this is definitely taking the spot of my favourite cozy fantasy of the year so far. Like, it was amazing. I would highly recommend it. We get to follow Garlic, we get to follow Garlic's friends, we see other people as well, we go on adventures, but the adventures are very sweet, very simple, but very much explore anxiety, mental health problems, being brave, standing up for yourself, standing up for others, wanting to grow, like all these different things, and they're covered in these two books so well. I think I would slightly lean towards Garlic and the Witch, I think, but I don't know, ask me a different day and I'd pick the other one. So yeah, I couldn't decide between them, so I've included them both in the same spot. They're great, they're lovely, highly recommend. Then this is one I just had to include because it was perfection in terms of ending a series but also ending a world. So that is Foul Heart Huntsman. This is the final book in the Foul Lady Fortune duology, but it's also the final book in the entirety of the Shanghai series that Chloe Gunk has written, and it just pulled everything together. Everything got concluded, but not in like a way where it felt like we're just wrapping things up. There was still plot, there was still so much going on, there was still so much character development in this. So many things got discovered, got explored, really got into the nitty-gritty of. It was amazing. Seeing all of our characters, together, like honestly it was just great. It was the perfect ending. I also have so many quotes that are highlighted in this. So, if I am to do some good, then I must make peace with my own limits. I would lose perspective otherwise. Then we had, even if the memories never come back, he said slowly, I am going to love you again. I've decided to warn you in advance. And then this was just, this said so much, because obviously like fantasy books are amazing and great, but obviously they do talk about the real world as well. They're talking about real world problems. You just have to be able to extrapolate that, and this just said so much. And the time I read this during March, and it just really felt like it put into words so much that I was feeling. And when this is an age of expansion, they will claim that invasion must be performed in self-defense. There is a necessity while their people grow hungrier, a population with mouths to feed and feet to plant. Isn't that how it always goes? Their people are real people, our people are not real people. Yes, perfection. If you're going to read this series, I would highly recommend reading the These Violent Delights duology first, then reading the Foul Lady Fortune duology. I do just think you'll get more of it if you read it that way. I think there's a lot more that you'll get out of the second series if you read it second, but you can read this without reading These Violent Delights. I just wouldn't recommend it. Then the first of two non-fictions in this pile is Gender. This is an amazing tiny little non-fiction basically about gender and gender within art. This is a book published by Tate. So Tate Modern is like an art gallery. They're all over the country, but the big one is in London, the Tate Modern. And this was done in such an amazing way. It made me feel so much. It made me think about so much. It said things I'd thought of, it said things I'd acknowledged, but it also said things that I'd never even crossed my mind before. Like things that are so obvious. Since reading this book, I've thought about it so much. There are things that I've noticed when going to places like art galleries and, you know, like exploring and going out in the world and seeing art that I definitely look more at now, and it did so much. So essentially it's talking about gender and how gender has been shown all throughout art. It weaves together facts, the author's opinion, voices of others, and also analysis of art itself. The way it is done is somewhere within the text. It will tell you exactly what it's talking about at points, and at the back there are those exact pictures, those exact paintings, sculptures, statues, like whatever art piece it's talking about is in the back, and you can look at it, and it just really works so well, and this spoke about so much. There are 2 quotes that I have wrote down in my reading journal that are so good, I will read them out to you. Okay, so the first quote that I thought was so amazing, and like bear in mind there's loads of tabs in this, but there's 2 that made it into the reading journal. The first one being, we can immortalise our defiance in this moment. Every day when we interact with the world, we hand over the camera and let others tell us where we stand, how to hold our shoulders, and what our photograph should look like. But our gender is not theirs to capture. We deserve autonomy. What they project onto it is their loss. And like, yeah, it had a bigger impact, I think, reading it within the book and exactly what we're looking at and the pictures we're looking at. But even just on its own, like, that's just so like, yeah. And then the other one I wrote down was, to talk about gender and its expression or possible queerness within the structures of only men and women is to miss out on a history and present that always existed. The first violence is the act of gendering. Then to decide there are only 2 is to kill or erase or never archive all those that said they were neither. And this just made me think so much. Like, it's not something you see in art. Like, there have been, whether it was called non-binary throughout history, or like, I know that non-binary is like a term that probably hasn't been used throughout history. I'm guessing it's like, you know, within the last 20-30 years the actual term non-binary has been made, but throughout history there have been people who, if they were here today, they would be calling themselves non-binary, assumingly, or there'd be other terms made for it. And you don't see that in art. You don't see it anywhere, like especially when you go to some of the older art galleries. Like, obviously there's a lot of art galleries now that show more modern things and like are more looking at wanting to display everyone. Like, I've been lucky enough to be to ones like in multiple places that really do want to show new and exciting things and show everyone. But as soon as you get to like the classic art, the older art, like, you know, like the oil paintings, I don't know how to describe it, I don't know how to analyse art, but you know what I mean. When you go into a gallery and you're looking at things like these, they are older, they show an older time, and you don't see anything that isn't binary, and you rarely see anything that isn't straight. And it's just so interesting to think about. This will stick with me for a long time. I imagine myself rereading this. Honestly, if I'm doing any sort of trip when I'm going to like a big gallery I'm really excited for, I definitely can imagine myself reading this before going, to put myself in like the best analytical and excessive headspace. The doorbell is going. Okay, I'm pretty sure I'd finished my thoughts on the last one. The doorbell went. I think I'd wrapped everything up, so let's go to the next book. And the next one making this list is Mislaid in Parts Half Known. I believe that this is the 9th book in the Wayward Children series. I might be wrong, I might be 1-8, it might be 8, it might be 10. I think it's 9. And this was such a great addition. This was the first book where it really felt like you had to have read previous books in the series to like continue on and like get everything, but in the best way. So this really felt like it relied a lot on the previous book, but it expanded so much. All of the things that in the previous, I'm really trying to figure out a way to talk about this without giving spoilers, but all the things in the previous book that felt like that could have been wrapped up in a more heartwarming way, that could have been like, oh, like I wish we saw a positive outcome, like I don't know, things like that really happened in this book. We saw the gang get together and go on an adventure, which is my favourite type of Wayward Children book, when there's like a group of them and they're all going on an adventure. It's happened 2 or 3 times now and they are always my favourite. In this one we learn a lot more about how the doors work, how the worlds work, like, and really have that knowledge for it. We get a lot of growth from multiple of our characters, and we also see a lot of new worlds, a lot of interesting worlds, and like get little glimpses into lots of them. And yeah, this is great. If you enjoy the Wayward Children series, keep reading, it just continues to be amazing. Then we have The Final Strife. This, when did I even read this? Okay, so I read it in June, but it was at the very start of the June. It was the 2nd book I read in June. As I'm recording this, it's like the 22nd of July. I'm still thinking about this. I need to pick up the next one because of everything this book did to me. I don't know how to talk about this. Right, let me read through my review and see what I can say. I was sucked in. This book made me feel a range of emotions. We follow mainly 3 different characters, but 2 of them are much more prominent than the 3rd. I'm hoping that will change in future books, as I do kind of think that like I vibe most when the one who wasn't so prominent in this one is like the focus and is the point of view we get. The political system and how things worked in this book were always a statement. They always said what they were, they never made sense. And by the end of this, we were exploring that. We were exploring why maybe they didn't make sense, why there were things were the way they were. We explored a lot. We also had trials. I love a good trial in a book. I'm never going to complain about a trial. And we had a lot of different people coming together. We had a lot of exploration. The characters were what made this book for me. They were so compelling. Like, I don't know if I'd pick up the second book if the plot wasn't also great, but the characters in this sucked me in. The characters in this are what made me keep reading until the plot got me. Yeah, there was tension, there were things going on, there were things we didn't want discovered, there were things that felt like we were going to get discovered at any moment. Honestly, I really highly recommend this if you enjoy kind of like a dystopian fantasy with trials, with drama, with secrets. It was great, but absolutely everything I've wrote down is once again spoilers. But what I will say is that even though they are spoilers, they are all like, because obviously I just write down my reviews for myself in my reading journal once I finish them, and it's always like my immediate thoughts, my immediate reactions, and there were so many things in this book that got me, that made me feel a certain way, made me feel that way. I felt like I had to write them down, like, oh my god, when this happened, like blah blah blah, blah. And that's like takes up a lot of the page, which is why I haven't gone into more details. But yeah, this was great. This was great. I need to pick up the next one. I can see this series being like a favourite series potentially. The final one comes out this year. I'm very excited about it. Okay, and then our final book on my top list, top books of 2024 so far, is actually my favourite non-fiction of the year so far, and that is Blind Spot, exploring and educating on blindness. So yeah, this it's a non-fiction, so I think first of all it's important to say everything this book said it was going to do, everything this book said its intention was, said it was setting out to do, it did. It reached all of that, it did all of that, it set out, it hit its goals, but it also hit so much more. It did so much more. It was really great. It was educational. I think about this a lot. I've read books since, especially older books when I'm reading classics and I'm looking at like representation and what they're doing. Like, it made me think. Basically, so I read The Day of the Triffids recently, and there's so much in that I was just like, yeah. I think what's going to be easiest to convey how I felt about this book is just reading out the review I wrote for myself. It's a non-fiction, there's no spoilers. This was amazing. It did absolutely everything it said it was setting out to do, and I got even more out of this than I ever expected. There were so many things to think about when reading this, and so much information to absorb. I have so many further resources from it to continue to learn more. Even though I learned so much, it did not read like a textbook. It was informative, but in a very easy to read way. The mixture of the book using the author's achievements and the scientific information and the studies worked really well, and the way all of them were linked together so seamlessly made it such an enjoyable read. I would highly recommend it to absolutely everyone, and I stand by that. It was great. My favourite non-fiction of the year so far. I learned so much from it. I'm still thinking about it, which to me is what makes non-fiction great. If once you've finished it you are still thinking about it, it is still impacting you. That's amazing. And yeah, I've read so much good non-fiction this year. At the end of the year I might even make a separate like favourite non-fiction of the year list, because yeah, it's been great this year and this is a standout at the top. So those were all of the books that have made me think, made me feel, that stand out. Obviously we did a few honourable mentions, we did my top 8, 9, however you want to class it, and I feel great. I feel great talking about these. They were so good. So yeah, that's kind of what my reading, what the best of my reading has been so far this year. I do really hope that you enjoyed the video. Please do give it a like if you did like it. Comment down below what your favourite book of the year so far has been. I would love to know. I would love a good recommendation. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.